Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today is Sunday, February 8, 2026.
And it's a date that, I don't know, it feels heavier than most Sundays used to.
It really does. If you've been doom scrolling this morning, or frankly any morning for the last 3 months, you know the vibe. The world feels tight, constricted.
Yeah.
We are officially, undeniably, in the grip of the rare earth trade war. It's the headline on the New York Times, it's the ticker on CNBC, and it's the reason your favorite tech gadgets are suddenly on back order or costing 30% more than they did at Christmas.
It's the quiet crisis that finally got loud. I mean, for years, supply chain experts, people in the back rooms of the Pentagon, Silicon Valley were whispering about this. Now they're screaming.
And the effects are real. We are seeing shockwaves hitting global supply chains that make the semiconductor shortages of 2021 look like a minor hiccup.
Oh, absolutely. And this time, it's not just about waiting an extra month for a PlayStation. It's hitting the defense sector. It's hitting the power grid. It's fundamental.
That's the scary part we're going to get to, the fighter jets and the submarines. But before we go to the geopolitical stratosphere, I want to ground this. I want to make this real for the person listening right now, maybe on their commute, maybe at the gym.
Good idea.
I want you to stop what you're doing for a second and reach into your pocket.
Or look at the dashboard of your car. It's everywhere.
Pull out your smartphone. We touch these things 1,000 times a day. We sleep next to them, but we never really ask what they are. We think of them as tech, but physically. In the context of this trade war, that phone isn't a device.
No.
It's a geological map. It is a pocket-sized planet Earth.
It's a museum of the periodic table, specifically the parts of the table most people slept through in high school chemistry.
Right. Because without rare earth elements, these 17 specific minerals we're obsessing over today, that iPhone or Samsung Galaxy is just a very expensive, very shiny brick of glass and plastic.
A paperweight.
Let's strip it down. You get a text message, the phone buzzes in your hand. That vibration, that's not magic. That is a tiny motor.
Oh, a haptic engine, yeah.
And inside that engine is a permanent magnet. And that magnet is made of neodymium.
And that's the key. Neodymium is the muscle. It's what allows us to make magnets that are incredibly powerful, but also microscopic. I mean, if you used a standard iron magnet for that buzzer, your phone would have to be the size of an actual brick to get the same vibration.
Okay, so neodymium is the muscle. Now, turn on the screen, take a photo. That camera lens, it's not just glass. It's polished and constructed using lanthanum.
Right. For the refractive index, it makes the lens clearer and smaller.
And the screen itself, that retina display with the perfect reds and greens, that's europium and terbium.
Those are the phosphors. Europium creates the red, terbium provides the green. Without them, your screen is dull. It's monochrome. It looks like something from the 90s.
So no vibration, no camera, no color screen. And that's just a phone. The reason we are doing this deep dive today is that the brick problem doesn't stop at your pocket. If you scale that technology up, make the motor bigger, make the sensor more sensitive, you aren't looking at a phone anymore.
Not at all.
You are looking at the guidance system of a Tomahawk missile. You're looking at the generator inside a wind turbine. You're looking at the MRI machine scanning a brain tumor.
We call these elements the vitamins of modern industry. You don't need a lot of them. A fighter jet isn't made of neodymium. It's made of aluminum and titanium. But the neodymium is the vitamin.
It's a great analogy.
And if you don't have that tiny percentage, the organism, the jet, the car, the MRI stops working. It dies.
And right now, the pharmacy is closed. Or at least, the pharmacist is holding the bottle hostage. That is the situation in February 2026. China controls something like 90% of the processing of these vitamins. They have a chokehold. And late last year, they started squeezing.
Hard. And the U.S. response, this mine-to-magnet strategy we keep hearing about from the White House, is trying to break that grip. The question we need to answer in the next hour is, can we? Can we actually rebuild an entire industrial supply chain from scratch before the economy and potentially our military readiness grinds to a halt?
It's a race against time. And to understand the race, we have to understand the starting gun. This didn't just happen yesterday. The escalation has been brutal. It was a tit-for-tat spiraling out of control all through 2025.
It was a textbook trade war escalation. I mean, it was almost predictable if you were watching closely. If you look back, the first real domino fell in April 2025.
Take us back there. April 2025. What did that feel like? I remember it being more confusing than anything else.
Confusion, mostly, that's the right word. China made a move that was very specific, very technical, and very calculated. They implemented export controls on 7 specific heavy rare earth elements.
And we're going to get into heavy versus light later because that
Yeah.
distinction matters a lot. But what were they targeting? What were these 7 elements?
They went after the exotic stuff, the real high-performance materials: samarium, gadolinium, terbium, dysprosium, lutetium, scandium, and yttrium.
Okay, so to the average person, those sound like planets in a Star Wars movie.
Right. But to a procurement officer at Siemens or General Electric or Raytheon, reading that list was like reading a ransom note.
Why those specific 7? What do they do?
Because they are the temperature elements. Dysprosium and terbium specifically are used to make magnets work in high heat. If you're building a standard refrigerator door magnet, you don't need them. But if you're building an EV motor that's going to get hot driving on the highway, or a guidance fin actuator on a missile, or a sensor inside a jet engine, you cannot function without them.
So they weren't trying to hurt the makers of cheap plastic toys.
No, no. This was a sniper rifle aimed directly at the high-tech and defense sectors of the West. It was a signal.
So that was the signal. We can touch the stuff you actually need. What happened to prices?
They went vertical immediately. In the EU, prices for terbium hit levels 6 times higher than domestic prices in China.
6 times.
6. Think about the competitive disadvantage there. If you're a Chinese company making an EV motor in Shenzhen, you pay, say, $100 for your raw materials. If you're a German company making the exact same motor in Bavaria, you're now paying $600. You're dead in the water before you even turn on the assembly line.
You can't compete.
You're priced out of the market instantly.
That was April, the warning shot. But then we get to the October surprise, October 9, 2025. This is where the legal framework shifted from just expensive to, well, impossible.
October 9 was the hammer drop. The State Administration for Market Regulation in Beijing didn't just add more metals to the list, though they did add 5 more, like holmium, erbium, and europium.
Right.
They changed the rules of the game. They introduced what we're now calling the trace amount rule.
This is the part I find absolutely wild. Explain this trace amount concept, because it sounds like something out of a sci-fi dystopia, this extraterritorial reach.
It's incredibly aggressive. Essentially, the new regulation stated that any foreign company needs a license to export products containing even trace amounts of Chinese-sourced rare earths.
And the threshold is what?
The threshold is 0.1%.
0.1%. That's dust. That's a rounding error in manufacturing.
It's nothing, but the implication is massive. Let's walk through an example. Let's say you are a French aerospace company, like Safran. You buy a sensor from a supplier in Italy.
Okay.
That Italian supplier bought a magnet from a distributor in South Korea, but that Korean distributor originally sourced the dysprosium in that magnet from a mine in Jiangxi, China.
Which is almost certainly the case.
Exactly. Under this rule, because your final French-made product contains that 0.1% of Chinese DNA, China now claims jurisdiction over where you can export that sensor.
So if that French company wants to sell that sensor to the U.S. Army,
China says no license for you. And they were explicit about this. The October 9th decree included a military ban. Licenses would be categorically denied to companies affiliated with foreign militaries. It was a direct blockade of the U.S. defense industrial base and, by extension, all of NATO.
that is effectively an embargo.
Right.
You can't make a modern weapon system without this stuff. And they said, if it has our dust in it, you can't sell it to the Pentagon.
Correct. And since China controls the processing, almost everything has their dust in it. It's a brilliant and devastatingly effective move.
So October 10th, the very next day,
Mhm.
President Trump responds. And true to form, it was not a subtle, nuanced response.
No, he went for the blunt instrument, the sledgehammer. He announced a 100% tariff on all Chinese imports.
Everything, not just magnets, toys, clothes, electronics, furniture,
Yeah.
the works, effective November 1st, 2025.
The whole 9 yards. It was a shock to the system.
A 100% tariff. That's doubling the price of everything coming from China. I remember the panic in the markets. But play devil's advocate here. Isn't that just a tax on American consumers? Why punish Walmart shoppers because Raytheon can't get magnets?
That's the blunt force argument, and it's a valid criticism. But the logic from the Trump administration, and you heard this echoed by people like Wilbur Ross, the former Commerce Secretary, was that you had to inflict immediate, unbearable economic pain to force a behavior change.
They had to get their attention.
They had to make the cost of this policy higher for China than the benefit. Ross argued that China's export controls were a disguised rationing system.
Meaning they were starving us on purpose,
Yeah.
but doing it quietly.
Exactly. Ross said they could use the licensing process to starve the U.S. defense needs while maintaining plausible deniability. They could say, oh, we aren't banning exports to the U.S., we're just processing the paperwork very slowly. Or, your application had a typo, please resubmit in 6 months.
Right, death by 1,000 bureaucratic cuts.
The 100% tariff was the U.S. saying, we aren't playing the paperwork game. We are burning down the trade relationship until you open the tap.
Wilbur Ross had that quote right about the leverage.
He did. He said rare earths are a very useful weapon for China. And this is the key part. For giving up a little bit of revenue, they are achieving a pretty good bang for the buck. He was acknowledging that China holds the cards.
So for them, losing a few billion in magnet sales is nothing compared to the strategic advantage of crippling the U.S. defense industry.
Precisely. And he knew our stockpiles are what he called a rounding error.
A rounding error. That's a comforting phrase from a former Commerce Secretary.
It's terrifying. He said we might have 6 months of supply, maybe 12 if we ration hard. But China can wait longer than 12 months. And then came December.
It got worse.
It got worse. If October was the hammer, December was the vice tightening. December 1st, 2025. China expanded the controls to internationally made products.
What does that mean? Internationally made. How is that different?
It means they stopped just looking at the raw rock leaving their ports. They started looking at parts, components, assemblies. Before, a company might set up a shop in, say, Vietnam. They'd import the raw materials from China, assemble the electric motor in Vietnam, and then export it to the U.S., bypassing the rule.
Closing the loophole.
Completely. Now, if you are shipping a finished electric motor out of China, that is controlled. If a motor is made in Vietnam with Chinese components and traded in Japan, China can still claim jurisdiction. It's a massive expansion of their control.
So now we are here, February 2026.
Okay.
What is the fallout on the ground? I saw the headlines about Ford.
It's bad. Ford Motor Company has warned of factory shutdowns. They are running low on the magnet assemblies for their EV drivetrains. But it's not just EVs. People focus on that, but it's the little motors.
Like what?
Windshield wipers, power seats, electric windows, power steering. A modern car has dozens, maybe 100 of these little magnets. If you miss one, you can't ship the car. The line stops.
And the European firms, what are we hearing from them?
They're drowning in paperwork. The backlog for export licenses in China is months long, and there's no transparency. Some applications get approved, some just disappear into a black hole. It creates total chaos for production planning.
It is a timing disconnect, as Ross said. The West is frantically trying to dig mines and build refineries, but those take years. China is squeezing supply today.
It feels like we walked into a trap. We spent 30 years outsourcing everything because it was cheap, and now we're shocked that the landlord changed the locks.
That is the history of globalization in a nutshell. We optimized for efficiency over resilience. Now the bill is due.
And it is a steep one.
I want to pivot here. We keep throwing around these names. Neodymium, dysprosium, light, heavy. I think for a lot of people, their eyes glaze over it. It sounds like high school chemistry class and not the fun part where things explode. But in this war, the chemistry is the strategy. You can't understand why the Pentagon is panicking unless you understand the rock itself.
That's absolutely true. The geology dictates the geopolitics.
So let's do Rare Earths 101, but make it quick and dirty. First off, the name. Rare Earths. Are they actually rare?
No, that's the first and biggest misconception. They are everywhere. Geologically, they're more common than things like copper or lead. Cerium, one of the most abundant, is more common than copper. You probably have some in your backyard right now.
So why the name?
It's an old name from when they were first discovered in the 18th century. They were found in these rare minerals, and they were hard to separate from their earths, which is the old term for oxides, so rare earths. The name stuck, but it's misleading.
Okay, so they're not rare. What's the problem?
The problem isn't the existence of the element, it's the concentration. They don't clump together in veins like gold or iron. They are dispersed. They are sprinkled through the Earth's crust like salt on a very large steak.
So finding a deposit that's rich enough to be worth mining is the rare part.
That's the first problem. But the bigger problem, the one that really defines the entire industry, is what's called the basket problem.
The basket problem. Okay, explain that.
Imagine you go to the grocery store to buy an apple. But the store tells you, we can't sell you just an apple. You have to buy this sealed basket. It has 1 apple, 10 bananas, 50 grapes, and a rotten peach.
And I have to pay for the whole basket and deal with the rotten peach.
You have to mine the whole basket. Rare earth elements are chemically promiscuous. They are very similar to each other, so they like to hang out together in the same minerals. When you dig up ore, you get all 17 of them mixed together in a chemical soup.
You can't just dig for neodymium.
You can't. You have to dig up the rock, which contains all of them, process all of it, and then figure out what to do with the stuff you don't want.
Which makes the economics incredibly tricky. If the world wants 1 million tons of neodymium for magnets, but nobody wants the cerium that comes with it.
You get a mountain of cerium you can't sell, which crashes the price of cerium, and that can make your whole mining operation unprofitable, even if your neodymium is selling well. It's a constant, difficult balancing act.
Okay, that makes sense. But let's go back to the light versus heavy distinction, because you said this is the kill switch China is pressing.
This is the absolute core of the issue.
Okay. Light versus heavy, what's the difference?
It's atomic weight. Literally, if you look at the periodic table, they're a long row near the bottom. The light rare earths are the ones at the beginning of that row. Neodymium, praseodymium, cerium, these are the workhorses. They are the bread and butter of the magnet industry.
And we have some of those, right, in the U.S.?
We do. The Mountain Pass mine in California, our one big active mine, is very rich in light rare earths. It's one of the best deposits in the world for that. We can produce neodymium.
So why are we panicking? If we have the muscle, what's the problem? We can make magnets, can't we?
The problem is the heat. This is the secret sauce. The heavy rare earths like dysprosium and terbium are much, much scarcer in most deposits around the world. But they have a magical property. They increase the coercivity of a magnet at high temperatures.
Translate that. Coercivity.
Yeah. Okay.
Coercivity is a magnet's resistance to being demagnetized. A standard neodymium magnet is incredibly strong at room temperature. But if you heat it up, say inside an electric motor spinning at 10,000 RPM or inside the turbine of a jet engine, it loses its magnetism. It gets weaker and weaker until it just stops being a magnet and becomes a useless rock.
Which is bad if you were flying an F-35 at Mach 1.
Catastrophic. The plane literally falls out of the sky. To prevent that, you have to doke the magnet with a small amount of dysprosium or terbium. It acts like a stabilizer. It allows the magnet to stay magnetic even when it's baking hot.
So light rare earths get you a magnet. Heavy rare earths get you a magnet that works in hell.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And here's a statistic that keeps generals at the Pentagon awake at night. China mines about 60% of the world's total rare earths. That's a lot, but manageable. But they control 99% of the global supply of separated heavy rare earths.
99%. Effectively 100%. The geology of southern China is unique. They have these ion adsorption clays. It's basically dirt that is rich in heavies and relatively easy to mine with simple chemical processes. The rest of the world, we have almost none of this specific geology.
So when China restricted those 7 elements back in April,
They weren't just restricting random elements, they were cutting off the global supply of high performance. They were saying, you can make fridge magnets, America. You can make motors for washing machines. But you can't make fighter jets. You can't make submarines. You can't make smart bombs.
let's drill into that defense angle. Because people hear defense industrial base, and it sounds abstract, like a line item in a budget. But we are talking about specific critical hardware.
Very specific.
Take the F-35 Lightning II. We've built the whole strategy of the Air Force and the Navy around this plane.
The F-35 is a flying computer, but it's also a flying magnet. It requires over 920 pounds of rare earth materials per plane.
920 pounds. That's like
No.
5 grown men made of pure rare earth metal stuffing into the fuselage.
Yeah.
Where does it all go?
It's everywhere. The actuators that move the flaps and ailerons, those are high-performance magnetic motors. The radar system, the electronic warfare suite, all rely on rare earths. The targeting system that tracks an enemy MiG that uses rare earth sensors. The nozzle that vectors the thrust so it can take off vertically. Magnets.
So if you strip the rare earths out, the F-35 is just a very expensive, very sleek-looking glider.
That's about right. It's a brick.
And submarines. You mentioned them.
Even worse, a Virginia-class submarine requires 9,200 pounds.
9,000 pounds.
4.5 tons.
Why? What is using that much?
Sonar. The sonar array. To hear underwater, you need a transducer. We use a material called terphenyl D. It's an alloy. Terbium, dysprosium, and iron. It is magnetostrictive.
Magnetostrictive.
It means when you hit it with a magnetic field, it physically changes shape. It vibrates. That vibration sends out the ping into the water. And when a ping comes back and hits it, the vibration creates an electrical signal.
So no terbium, no sonar.
No sonar. The sub is blind and deaf. $1 billion coffin. And you can't just swap it out. You can't say, oh, we're out of terbium, let's use copper. The physics doesn't work.
And it's not just the big platforms, it's the munitions too, right?
Oh, yeah. Tomahawk missiles, smart bombs, the little fins that guide them to their target are controlled by tiny, powerful neodymium magnets. Night vision goggles use germanium, which is often grouped in here. Lasers for targeting use yttrium. It's in everything that makes our military smart.
It's terrifying how fragile this is. We built the most advanced military in human history, but the foundation rests on a supply chain that runs directly through the territory of our main strategic rival. How did we let this happen? This seems like gross negligence on a national scale.
It wasn't really negligence, it was a choice. It was a deliberate 30-year strategy by China and a 30-year nap by the West, driven by pure economics.
The long game.
Absolutely. While Wall Street was looking at quarterly earnings, Beijing was looking at the strategic value chain for the 21st century. Deng Xiaoping famously said in the 90s, "The Middle East has oil. China has rare earths." They knew this was coming.
I've heard this described as the vacuum cleaner strategy.
That's a great visual for it. China became the world's vacuum cleaner for rare earth. See, for a long time, the West did mine this stuff. Mountain Pass in California was the biggest mine in the world in the 80s. We dominated.
So what happened? Why did we stop?
Because it's dirty.
Right.
Mining rare earths is nasty business. The ore often contains radioactive elements like thorium and uranium as byproducts. You have to deal with toxic wastewater full of acids and heavy metals. In the 80s and 90s, with the rise of the environmental movement in the U.S., the regulations got tighter and the costs went up.
And China said,
we'll take it. We don't have those regulations. We'll do it cheaper.
So we exported the pollution.
We exported the pollution. And in doing so, we exported the expertise. We dug up the rock in California, put it on a boat, and sent it to China to be processed because it was cheaper. China built the refineries, they built the separation plants, they subsidized them heavily with state money to drive everyone else out of business.
And they succeeded.
Wildly. Today, China controls 91% of refining and separation. They control 94% of magnet manufacturing. They didn't just capture the mine, they captured the entire value chain from mine to magnet.
They don't even have to mine it all themselves. They import ore from other places.
From us. For years, Mountain Pass was mining ore and shipping it to China. They also import from Myanmar and other places. They are the world's refinery.
And there was a move in December 2023 that you've highlighted as the real checkmate move, even before this current trade war really kicked off, the technology ban.
This is the thing nobody talks about, but it's maybe the most important piece of the puzzle. In December 2023, China banned the export of technology to refine and separate rare earths.
So not the rock, not the magnets, the machines and the blueprints.
The know-how. The solvent extraction technology. To separate these elements, you need these massive, complex facilities with hundreds of mixer settlers. It's a chemical cascade. It's incredibly difficult to get right. By banning the export of the tech, China ensured that even if the U.S. spends billions to build a refinery, we have to reinvent the wheel.
We have to learn how to do it all over again.
We have to re-engineer the process from scratch. We can't just buy the rare earth refiner 3000 from a Chinese vendor anymore.
We have to design our own, and that takes engineers, it takes chemists, it takes years. Time we don't have.
And this isn't the first time they've used this as a weapon. People forget the 2010 incident with Japan.
Right, over the fishing trawler.
Exactly. A dispute over some islands, and China just cut off all rare earth exports to Japan. Prices for some elements went up 10 times almost overnight. It was a warning shot to the world, and we mostly ignored it.
Which brings us to the mine-to-magnet strategy. The U.S. finally woke up. We are throwing money at this. The Department of Defense has a goal. A sustainable domestic supply chain by 2027. That's next year. Is that a pipe dream?
It's extremely optimistic. Let's be generous and call it optimistic. The centerpiece of the strategy is MP Materials. They run the Mountain Pass mine.
The one that went bankrupt and got resurrected.
The very same. It's back. And it's actually a great American industrial story in the making. The DoD gave them over $400 million in grants. They are building a heavy rare earth refinery in Texas. They call it the 10X facility. They are trying to close the loop so the rock never has to leave America.
They also did a deal with Apple, right? And GM.
A huge deal. GM is a major investor. The idea is to mine it here, refine it here, and make the magnet here for an American car company. It's the full supply chain dream.
But let's look at the numbers. Because success story sounds nice, but math is usually where the buzzwords die.
The math is brutal. It's sobering. Even with the new expansion, MP Materials is projecting maybe 1,000 tons of finished magnets annually in the near term.
1,000 tons, okay. How many does China make?
About 138,000 tons per year.
Ooh.
Yeah. 1,000 versus 138,000. It's a rounding error. It's enough to supply maybe a few critical defense programs, but it won't save the auto industry. It won't keep the lights on for the green transition. Not even close.
And MP Materials mostly has light rare earths, right? They don't have the heavy spice for the high-temp magnets.
Correct. Their deposit is light dominant. For the heavies, we're looking at Linas. They are an Australian company. They are the biggest player outside of China.
Yes, they're building in Texas, too.
They are. Also funded by the DoD, they are building a massive, heavy rare earth separation facility in Texas.
But they don't have a mine in Texas. They're not digging anything up there.
No. They mine the rock in Australia at a place called Ment Weld. They concentrate it, put it on a massive ship, send it across the Pacific Ocean to a port in Texas, and then truck it to the refinery.
That seems incredibly inefficient. And vulnerable, shipping dirt halfway around the world.
It is the logistics of the new Cold War. It's not about efficiency, it's about security. If you want heavies without a made-in-China stamp on them, you have to go to Australia. It's the only game in town at scale.
What about recycling? The urban mine. We have millions of old hard drives and crushed cars and junkyards. Can't we just melt them down?
The circular economy, it's the dream, and it's a huge opportunity. Companies like Cyclic Materials are working on it, and there's a fascinating bonus. Old tech from 10 years ago is actually really useful.
How so?
The magnets in an old computer hard drive are actually richer in heavy rare earths than newly made ones. Back then, they just threw a lot of dysprosium in there to be safe.
Yeah.
Now they engineer it more precisely. So our trash is actually high-grade ore.
So we're sitting on a gold mine or a dysprosium mine.
We are. But getting it out is a nightmare. Imagine baking a cake with flour, sugar, and eggs. Now, after it's baked, try to extract just the pure sugar from the finished cake. That's what recycling rare earth magnets is like. You have to shred the hard drive, decoat the magnet, dissolve the whole thing in acid, and then run it through a complex chemical process to separate the elements from each other.
It's just as hard as processing the original ore.
In some ways, it's harder. And the recovery rate, the infrastructure. Right now, we capture less than 1% of rare earths from recycled products. We are terrible at it. We have no system for collecting old magnets. They just go to the landfill. It's growing, but it's not going to save us in 2026.
It feels like every solution we have is yes, but. Yes, we have a mine, but no refinery. Yes, we have a refinery, but the ore is in Australia. Yes, we have recycling, but no collection system.
And that leads to the trilemma. This is a concept from the Japan Research Institute, and it perfectly captures the corner we've painted ourselves into. You have 3 goals, but you can only pick 2.
Okay, lay it on me. The trilemma.
Goal 1, decarbonization. So building lots of EVs, wind turbines, solar panels, green energy.
Got it.
Goal 2, de-risking from China. Building secure, independent supply chains. National security.
Okay, goal 3, economic stability. Keeping prices low and avoiding inflation.
Decarbonization, de-risking, and low prices.
And you can only have 2.
You can only have 2. So let's play the game. You want green energy and low prices.
Yeah, that sounds great. Everyone wants that.
Then you buy from China. They make the cheapest solar panels, the cheapest EVs, the cheapest magnets because of state subsidies and lax environmental rules. But you have zero security. You are completely vulnerable to exactly what's happening right now.
Okay, that's where we've been for 20 years. So now I want security and green energy.
Great. Then you have to build everything in the West. You build the mines in Australia, the refineries in Texas, the magnet factories in Ohio. But that costs a fortune. Your EV costs $80,000 instead of $40,000. Your electricity bills go up. That crushes economic stability. You get massive inflation.
And the third option, I want security and low prices.
Then you have to abandon the aggressive green transition. You stick with oil and gas for longer. You don't need nearly as many rare earths for a gas combustion engine. You keep the economy stable. You secure your supply chains by simply not needing the thing China controls. But you sacrifice your climate goals.
And looking at the Trump 2026 strategy, the 100% tariffs, the drill baby drill rhetoric, it looks like we picked option 3, security and stability powered by fossil fuels.
It appears so. By slapping 100% tariffs on Chinese green tech components, we are essentially making the green transition prohibitively expensive in the short term. We are sacrificing speed on climate change for sovereignty and supply chains. It's a brutal trade-off.
And there's the environmental elephant in the room we touched on earlier,
Yeah.
the radioactive waste. We are trying to build these refineries in Texas. How are the locals feeling about that?
Not great, as you can imagine. The NMB factor, not in my backyard, is huge. The Linus plant in Texas has faced serious questions about wastewater and water usage in a state that often has droughts.
And the waste itself.
The waste itself. These plants use massive amounts of acid. They produce radioactive tailings. In China, for decades, they just dumped it in tailing ponds that leaked into the groundwater and poisoned villages. In Texas, you can't do that. You have to handle it according to strict EPA rules, which is incredibly expensive.
So we want the magnet, but we don't want the toxic sludge that comes with it.
We want the sausage, but we don't want to see the slaughterhouse in our backyard.
Yeah.
And that makes permitting these plants incredibly slow. China can build a refinery in 18 months in the U.S. With EPA reviews and lawsuits from local groups, try 5 years, maybe more.
So we are stuck.
Yeah.
The trade war is hot. The supply is tight. Is there a nuclear option left? Can this get worse?
Oh, it can get much worse. We are in a tit-for-tat cycle. The U.S. just did the 100% tariff. China hasn't fully responded to that yet.
What's their next move? What could they do?
They could cut off the legacy chips, the older, less advanced computer chips that they still manufacture, which are crucial for cars and washing machines. Or they could go for a total embargo on heavy rare earths, not just a license requirement, a full stop. No more dysprosium for America, period.
And if they do that?
The U.S. defense industry hits a wall. Production of new F-35s and submarines would have to slow or stop. And the U.S. response to that? Well, Wilbur Ross hinted at it. The ultimate catastrophe. Taiwan. If China squeezes the raw materials we need and the U.S. squeezes the advanced AI chips China needs, the tension focuses on the one place that makes the chips. TSMC Ross called a blockade of Taiwan catastrophic. If that happens, the rare earth trade war becomes a shooting war.
That is a horrifying thought. Let's try to find a glimmer of hope before we wrap up. Innovation. American ingenuity. Can't we just science our way out of this? Can't we invent a magnet that doesn't use these damn vitamins?
This is the innovation wildcard. And yes, people are trying. It's a huge area of research. Tesla, for instance, announced they are moving to ferrite magnets for some of their future motors.
Ferrite is just iron, right? It's basically a high-tech fridge magnet.
Basically, it's iron oxide, it's rust, it's cheap, it's abundant, we can make it anywhere, but it's weak and it's heavy. A ferrite magnet has a fraction of the power of a neodymium magnet of the same size.
So you can use it for a windshield wiper motor, maybe?
Sure, or a standard range EV where you don't care as much about the 0-60 time or the overall weight. But for defense, for an F-35, no way. Physics is physics. You cannot beat the power-to-weight ratio of rare earths with current technology.
You'd have to make the plane bigger and heavier to accommodate the weaker magnets.
Exactly. If you put ferrite magnets in a fighter jet, the engine would be twice as heavy and half as powerful. It wouldn't be a fighter jet anymore. It would be a bus with wings.
So innovation helps the civilian market adapt, but the Pentagon is still hooked on the hard stuff.
For the next decade, yes, absolutely. There are startups. Iron Magnetics is doing cool stuff with iron nitride, but scaling that from a lab bench to mass production that can supply the military-industrial complex takes time and a ton of money, time we don't have in this crisis.
So bringing this all home, February 2026, the tariffs are on, the panic is real. What do the next few years look like? What should we be bracing for?
We are entering the gap years. From now, 2026, until maybe 2029 or 2030.
The Valley of Death.
Exactly. It's the valley of death for supply chains. The old supply chain from China is breaking. It's being weaponized. But the new supply chain from Texas and Australia isn't ready. It's not online yet. We are in the gap.
And in that gap,
Expect shortages. Expect high prices. Expect strategic brownouts where certain products just aren't available for a while. Maybe you can't get the top-end electric car. Maybe a certain medical device is on back order. It will be painful.
it's going to be a rough ride.
Yeah, it is. The mine-to-magnet dream is happening. The dirt is moving. The steel is rising in Texas. But until those factories are humming and producing at scale, we are vulnerable, deeply vulnerable.
You know, we started this conversation with a phone in our pocket, and I want to leave the listeners with a thought about that phone.
Go for it.
For 30 years, that phone was a symbol of globalization. Designed in California, assembled in China, with parts from Korea and minerals from the Congo and Australia, it was the peace dividend in physical form. Cheap, amazing tech available to everyone because the world worked together.
And now?
Now that phone is becoming a symbol of fragmentation, of de-globalization. As we pay 100% tariffs, as we subsidize these domestic mines with billions of taxpayer dollars, as the price of that phone inevitably goes up, we are paying a new kind of tax.
The sovereignty tax?
That's it. We are paying the sovereignty tax. The era of cheap, globally sourced gadgets is officially over. We are paying for the privilege of knowing that our stuff, and more importantly, our weapons, can actually be made by us. And the question for all of us is the tax worth it? Are we willing to pay more for our phones so that our fighter jets can fly?
History suggests that when the shooting starts, you really, really wish you'd paid the tax earlier.
A sobering thought to end on. Thanks for diving deep with us today. It's a complex, messy, radioactive topic. But hopefully the next time your phone vibrates, you won't just check the text. You'll think about the tiny neodymium engine that made it happen and the global tug-of-war deciding who gets to build it.
Stay informed, everyone. It's going to matter.
We'll catch you on the next Deep Dive.